Hello, everybody, and welcome to Scare Your Friends, the only podcast on the internet that's being stalked by the Disney Corporation. I'm joined by my friends Daniel, William, and Dylan, and we are hiding from Disney. How's it going, guys?
Hi, Disney.
What?
Dylan, they're not supposed to know what we're doing. The truth is out there.
Hi, everybody. We're all doing great this evening. How are you doing in your fine homes or cars or what have you?
Oh, my God.
Oh,
That's cool. I'm doing fine, too, thanks. John, how was your weekend, Ben? All right, that's cool. Dan, what are you up to?
Oh, my God. I mean, I'm here.
All right, I am so happy, by the
Don't touch
way.
my knee.
I'm so happy, by the way.
Don't do that.
I went for the second touch. I
Okay.
tried. Dylan! Never mind. John! John, talk to us. Give us something. What's going on?
I don't know. How are you feeling, William? You feeling good?
Dude, I am chipper. I am ready to go. I'm down to clown.
Till you're dead in the ground.
I didn't fucking...
Alright. Okay. Well, welcome to Scare Your Friends. Last time, we read Pen Pal, and I just want to say that the story was so good that Daniel actually went out and bought the book. He bought the novel.
Book by David.
How is it so far? Don't spoil it, but just say how you...
I only read through Footprints.
Steps.
Footsteps. I want to talk about it, but I feel like I would discredit the rest of the story if I don't finish it and try to compare it to the creepypasta. So we'll hold off on that. Maybe next time, John, and
Put a
then
pin
we'll
in
talk
that.
about it. Yeah.
All right.
So.
Well, anyway, last time we did a new format where I, told you guys, hey, you don't know if this is real or if it's creepypasta. And actually, after going through both parts of the episode, which at this moment they'll both be out by now,
Right.
when everyone's listening to this. And what's interesting is that after part one,
I knew
everybody, including Nate, was saying that everyone thought this was a no sleep or a creepypasta.
Right.
But by the end,
And we flipped the script.
all of you thought, and turned to be a
See,
creepypasta.
I'll mildly amend that and just say that I really wanted it to be real. So I let my feelings
you're wrong.
get in
Just
the way.
admit you were wrong.
No, I was totally wrong.
Okay.
I was totally wrong.
He
100%. Totally wrong. Totally wrong. I really wanted to be right, though.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be real, because it would have been, sad. I don't know why I wanted that in further retrospect.
Because
but
life is sad and
I guess
tragic.
so. I suppose. It would have been dope if it was real, and in a bad way. It would have been dope. But it wasn't. So.
All right, so
Fire.
I liked the new format a lot, and we're gonna keep doing it in the future. But
Yeah,
for today, we are.
I
gonna...
didn't like it.
Yeah, okay, thanks, Will. Anyway,
Then you could go the fuck home.
yeah.
All right, I'm
Go
out.
back to Massachusetts where you came from.
Peace.
You goddamn tea dumpers. Pieces of shit.
I don't think he's. All right, whatever.
You dumped tea one time!
Not my king.
Hashtag not my George.
History vindicated us, alright?
Oh my god.
God, Disney's not gonna want to stalk us after this.
Yeah.
Anyway, speaking of Disney, a lot of Disney things I've been talking about, and it's because we're reading a sequel to the most popular Disney creepypasta story, Abandoned by Disney. This...
What?
What do you say it
What?
3 times? It was
He
never...
says it 3 times. The reason why
He said
ignored it
Frozen,
the first
guys.
2 times.
I'm actually looking
All right.
at the Audacity recording. His thing is so small, which means for the audience he was going Frozen.
Why
So
did you
here's
say
the-
that? Well, the cold never bothered him anyway, John.
Dylan, if you're gonna make a really terrible joke, just make it once and
commit
let it
to
sit.
it. Right.
Don't repeat it.
Either we acknowledge it
Okay.
or we don't, and we move on.
Okay. New York Jets. How about that?
No,
Yeah,
Dylan.
fine. Just
Nobody
once.
gets that joke because
No one
nobody
gets it.
was there when we were
Hey,
making
but you know
it
what,
guys?
hours ago.
All right,
Everyone
God
knows about
damn.
that, right?
Everyone, if anyone knows about the New York Jets, it's a joke, though. So that's fine.
Okay, guys, this is not the time nor the
Sorry
place,
to
nor
do
the
So,
that.
John,
demographic.
this is the first sequel to a creepypasta
Yeah, we were
that
doing-
we've read that we're covering,
Keep doing the thing you were trying to do.
right?
I think so. No,
Yeah.
no, well, Pen Pal technically, but that's all part of
No,
one.
that
No.
doesn't count. That's all one story.
No, I'm trying to. No, I guess yeah. I'm just gonna say yes. Yeah, that probably.
So that's
is.
interesting. First sequel we're covering. Who do you want to read first, John?
How about you, Dan? You seem excited.
Wait a
I'm
minute,
very
what's
excited
the title
because-
of the story,
It's
everybody?
called Room Zero, and it was written by Slimebeast. This is the sequel to his very famous story, Abandoned by Disney.
Sounds promising. Can't wait to read it. Let's
He's a
start.
good author. Let's
Yeah.
jump in.
Yeah.
I love how enthusiastic you all are.
Happy to be here. Dan, why don't you take it away for us?
Gladly.
Thank you.
It's been a while since I've written anything related to the Disney Corporation,
God damn it.
and I'm sure you can understand why. I just broke Dylan. A lot has been going on since my last post. I received a lot of questions and concerns from folks who read my first-hand account of Mowgli's Palace, a resort that was built and abandoned by Disney.
Okay, hang on. Let's just stop here. Actually, this is what I wanted to do before we even started reading. What do you guys remember about Abandoned by Disney?
A lot, actually.
This dude was all like, oh, Disney Corporation set up this crazy podunk place, and they spent a lot of money, and it blew up, and now it's abandoned, and I'm going to go out by myself and check it out. And he went in, and there was nothing going on.
And there was a snack.
And there was a big snack. Around the Baloo the Bear thingamajig.
Yeah.
And he went in, and there was a secret entrance that was, like, locked, but he, like, touched it, and it unlocked, and he went in. And he found the secret corridor.
And he kept saying "Abandoned by Disney, Abandoned by Disney."
That was a recurring thing, just like the title. And he went down this hallway, and it was really creepy and spooky. And he went into a room, and there was like crazy like mascots that were all beat up and shitty looking. And he picked up Mickey's head or something, and a skull fell out.
It was Donald's head, but yeah, you're close.
Donald's head, and then Mickey was like, "Oh, touch my penis," and then he came off.
Well,
the
not
wall,
quite, but yeah.
And he turned around.
Well, he said, "Want to see me rip my head off?"
And it said "Abandoned by
Want to see
God,"
the trick or
and it
whatever,
was like, "Oh my God."
Well, this is okay. So
I mean, that
what
was
we just
pretty
witnessed,
accurate.
guys, what we just witnessed, William recalling pretty much the entire story,
I think
Yeah,
I
it's
nailed
pretty
it.
is the vindication I need to say that Abandoned by Disney is a really good story. Because oftentimes when we read these stories on the podcast, William just forgets about them
true.
within like
That's true.
within the hour. He'll just forget.
I don't
Like
remember most.
even the most like fun or clever jokes that we have, William will just completely.
And we
fucking-
recorded Abandoned by Disney before Halloween,
Mhm.
so you still remember that story.
No, I super retained it, I guess. That's cool.
It's just tabula rosa. Like as soon as the mic turns off, you're like, okay. So anyway, Metal Gear Solid is the shittiest series of all time.
Let's not run back
okay.
down that road.
So I didn't mean to interrupt the the intro. So basically,
That
it's
is
the
totally
same.
okay.
All right, so we know it's the same guy, and he's
Yeah.
going to be talking about what's happened since
Which
he
is
ran
cool.
the fuck away from Mowgli's palace. So Dan,
Yeah.
keep going.
I want to thank everyone who mirrored my post. It's been taken down from a few places, mostly corporate sites that were easily leaned on by larger power.
Disney.
However,
Tinfoil
for
hat.
every nuke topic or disappearing blog post, it seems like 100 more have popped up. This is something they'll have to face. There's no turning back for them. None for me either. Okay.
Is this gonna be like the story of like how he's uncovered the truth and now there's a crazy like plot to kill him
Conspiracy,
and Disney's chasing him down, he can't trust anyone, and we
Yeah.
find out 2/3 of the way through the movie, creepypasta, that the person he was closest to the whole time is actually a Disney plant, and they've been there for years and years, and they're like, I'm sorry, I can't betray them, and then they like stab him in the back, and he's like, no, I trusted you with my life, and then he gets out anyway, and he gets the truth out of there.
That was terribly concise. Considering, excuse me, it's the Corona. Considering John, I vaguely remember John saying there's a third part to this. I may probably
There is, so after Room Zero, there is actually two more stories. One is a prequel to the first story, and the other one is the third story.
Is it a
following this.
prequel or a reboot?
So if this is Lord of the Rings, the third story is Hobbit. The third story is kind of like The Hobbit.
This is a weird metaphor, and you've lost
So
me.
it's really long and drawn out.
Okay,
nobody
this
asked
is
for it.
there is three main stories.
Fuck Peter Jackson.
Oh my god! There are three main stories in this trilogy,
Right.
and then there's a fourth story that he wrote before the final story,
But-
which is
Fourth story is the
before.
fourth story.
It's weird.
Okay,
What-
so
what
what
we
you're
get-
saying is we'd be reading them in the order of
He wrote
Fellowship
them.
of the Rings,
The
Two
Two
Towers,
The
The
Hobbit,
Hobbit, Return
Then
of the
Return
King.
to the King.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, I'm with you.
All right.
Also, if this story doesn't end just like They Live, and they break into the Disney Corporation, and he adjusts the satellite, and then all the Disney shills are like lizard people with no faces, and they're all in mid-coitus, I will be disappointed.
Have you ever? Yeah, that was such a weird moment at the end of that movie. It's
Yep.
just titties, and then
That's
it's
how
like,
They Live ended.
Have you ever seen that movie?
No, I haven't. Dylan,
really
why don't you
good.
read the story? Let's get back to the story, guys.
I'm definitely being followed. For the first month or two, I chalked it up to paranoia. Any casual glance or half smile in my direction set me off. Hair standing on the back of the neck and everything. The first one, or rather the first one I was actually able to spot, was the telephone worker, milling around my apartment complex. He was middle-aged, doughy, dressed just as you expect, but something just seemed off about him. I couldn't place it, but I knew this wasn't just my imagination acting up. He was awkward and out of place. Not somebody who was comfortable doing his routine job. I followed him around a corner, only to lose him there. When I turned back to go home, there he was, staring directly at me, about 10 feet behind me, expressionless and cold. Exploring? He asked. That was all he said, and there was an accusing tone to his voice. Tell me what blue-collar phone jockey does that.
I want this story to just end with him. It's all paranoia. Like, nobody even knows he was there. Disney doesn't know who he is. And it's just like, he's just really paranoid to the point, like, he accidentally kills someone. Like, an innocent human being.
Like, that'd be cool, but I'm really all in on this They Live thing.
Okay.
And we're going in the right direction, is all I'll say.
I'm here to kick ass and chew bubblegum. And I'm all out of gum.
Alright, where are you at?
I guess that's the worst part. Never feeling safe. Never feeling alone. That and the occasional Disney merchandise left somewhere for me to find. Little rubber Mickeys in the mailbox. A Disney Adventures magazine on my bookshelf. They hide little Mickeys everywhere. 2 circles, 1 big, 2 small, in the silhouette of the famous mouse's head. I've started keeping a running list of Mickeys I found.
Coffee cup rings on my coffee table. 1 big, 2 small. Colored glass bottles left on the doorstep, viewed from top down, all red. Graffiti on the wall on my way to work. A huge earth, a small sun and moon in the proper locations. They're everywhere.
This guy's fucking going nuts. This
Yeah,
guy's absolutely going nuts.
it sounds like it.
Like, you were like, They Live, and then I read that and I looked at you like, yeah, no, this guy's fucking losing it.
All right, fair
Well,
enough.
the rubber Mickey's in the mailbox, though.
That's fine,
Okay.
but this other shit, he's like searching.
This
Like,
is
Right.
the part where he finds them, and then at the end of the movie we pan over, and he's just gathered a bunch of junk,
right,
and he's just insane.
right. It's like, and I get it, but like, that's the thing. When you're paranoid or you're afraid of something, you look for things to assess that paranoia or
Yeah.
to reinforce that paranoia.
But hey,
That's what's
Hemingway
happening.
was right, so who are we to judge?
Fair enough.
People have emailed me about it as well. If you reposted anything I have to say, you're going to start finding those son of a bitch outlines. I guarantee it. The best one by far, one that actually made me laugh because of the horror of it, was a drawing in chalk next to my car. I was taken aback at first, walking through the parking garage, keeping an eye out for people following me. The outline seemed a perfect match for, well, a murder victim, if you've read my past post. Written in yellow paint, I'm sure was a single word. Retracted. The only good thing that has come out of all this is that I know I'm not the only one who's seen something they shouldn't have.
I'm not going to give their names because, well, if I have to tell you why, you haven't been paying attention. Researcher goes to Disney parks whenever he can, all throughout the year. He's not going to have fun, enjoy the rides, etc. He's looking for the gas cots. There's been a long tradition, apparently, of people reporting strange patrons throughout the park. Silent, motionless, staring patrons of every age, shape, and size. Men and women, adults, children, and teens. All wearing Disney-themed gas masks. Way back when, Disney would get tons of complaints about oddly dressed folks following others around the park. Folks who would then merge into crowds and disappear, probably by taking off their gas masks. Later on, the gas masks caused folks to draw other conclusions, and reports of possible terrorists and bombers started flowing. All those reports most likely went straight into the trash can. I know I can't find any sign of such occasions reported on by the media, although you should be aware of the fact Disney can pretty much control its press like no other. Researcher goes to the parks, talks to a few people, and tries not to draw any attention to himself. He'll just ask 3 or 4 families if they've seen his friend who's wearing a funny mask. He has yet to see a gas cot for himself, though on one occasion a child pointed him toward Frontier Town. As he raced through the crowd, he heard a single voice ahead cry out, "Mommy, I want a goofy air mask too."
A fellow I'll call lifeguard worked in Disney Water Park from 2001 through 2003. He stood at the top of the huge water slide and made sure none of the kids got too rowdy. He passed the kids through, one at a time, telling them over and over again to be safe, keep their arms in, and so on. One day, as he tells it, this fat kid goes down the tube and doesn't come out the other end. He sent 2 or 3 kids after. The whole thing moves at a steady clip. So naturally, you'd expect that if Fatty got stuck, the kids that followed him were stuck too. Not so. Only the big kid disappears. Everyone else comes out the other end, cheering and splashing like nothing's wrong. Lifeguard shuts down the slide, much to the aggravation of the kids waiting. Before he can go through any of Disney's strict procedures, splash, Fatty finally comes out.
Like
That's
that one.
fucking weird. Staff members pulled the kid out of the water. He sank like a stone when he hit. His skin already blue and his eyes wide. All he could say was, "No face, kids," and stop squeezing. The kid was okay, in case you're wondering. He got carted off to the medical center. When lifeguard was told to open the slide back up, he made a big stink about how it clearly wasn't safe. Despite his complaints, he was threatened with firing and begrudgingly opened the slide again. From that point on, he kept a closer eye on kids. Every so often, they'd come out in the wrong order. Never as stunned as the fat kid, but always with a vague look of concern. A dreamy half-stupor that seemed as if they were trying to figure out what was reality. They'd take on some water and choke a bit, and they never come back up to the rotted Ken. That's interesting. I like that.
See, this is why the internet's a dangerous place. Because if you're a loony, you can find fellow loonies.
Right.
This guy's a nut, and he's found crazy hungover lifeguard who can't remember the order kids
But
down the slide.
I like the idea of this maybe being a supernatural element where that's a cool observation. But I feel like they are fucking
We're
nuts.
really ping-ponging. I feel like we both reversed
right.
ways that we're reading.
It's hard, man. This
times.
is going in totally different directions with every couple paragraphs.
I won't say I agree with your point of view on what this is, but it's an interesting take. Honestly, I can see why.
Which,
like
the tinfoil or the truther?
The tinfoil. Because this is a guy who has... To be fair, this isn't like a conspiracy nut. He's a guy who's seen something wrong.
But every conspiracy nut has a moment in their lives where they become a conspiracy nut.
Yep.
No one pops out the womb going, Bush did 9/11, you know? So there has to be a moment where we decide no one landed on the moon. And this is his crazy JFK assassination moment, you know?
Right.
Which, to be fair, is a pretty bummer one, and I can't blame
he
him.
did have some incredibly traumatic, scary shit happen to him, so it's understandable.
So, I mean, right.
I read his emails with the same sort of unease you might be feeling right now. I wanted him to share his own story, but in the end, he didn't want to expose himself that way. I can't say I blame him. Snow White, which was the actual role she played, was a character in the park. She had a nice little tidbit for me. You know what happens when a costumed employee drops dead in his suit? Like one second he's taking a picture with little Jimmy, and the next he's had a fatal stroke. A second costume mascot in the area has to sit with the corpse on a curb or bench and wait for a designated dry cleaner to arrive and cut the body away in a discreet manner. All the while, patrons have no idea they're sitting with a dead body for photo ops.
I think that's actually, that makes a lot of sense as far... I mean, maybe...
Does it, though?
Dan's face says it all, everyone.
Does
that
it, though?
was a real look
Does
of
it, though?
please.
That's kind of fucked up.
I mean, from
And
a story
to be
perspective,
fair-
that's dope, but...
I mean...
I don't know, I think... Because what do you do, though? I mean, I guess... I mean, I don't know. I mean, does that happen?
You don't...
Alright, from the perspective that Disney loves to keep up the facade of happiness that's well documented, I appreciate this concept. I don't know if I buy it, though.
Right, but
neither do I.
But this is the problem, because we're still debating if this narrator is reliable or not. He sounds like a fucking loon. And this is definitely something a loon would make up if they thought that Disney, the corporation of Disney, was chasing him because he posted something on the internet.
I think the problem is we've heard too many, crazy conspiracy stories to take them seriously anymore, which is probably to our detriment as a society.
Well...
Because the idea that everything's hunky-dory is kind of a ridiculous one, but...
But here's the thing with this story, we're interpreting it this way, but maybe it is serious. But I feel like with Slime Beast, his writing is so elevated that this is kind of like, well, what happens to this character next? Or like a parody, not necessarily parody, but
in the weeks and months that follow the traumatic events in Mowgli's Palace, he's become a bit of a nut.
More a reality check than a parody.
Right, but the authorial intent, it's like...
I think we're too early to know the authorial intent.
We'll see.
Absolutely.
All right. Who wants to keep...
Feel free to check your authorial albums at this point.
I like that one.
That was bad, but another fellow, janitor, went completely off the creepy charts. Disney World, and probably others, is built with a series of underground tunnels just below your feet.
Now, that is true.
3 stories worth. Anything and everything you can imagine is down there for use of the employees. They're called utility doors or utility corridors. Basically, that's the reason you don't see characters out of place or janitors wandering through the park. They pop in and out of hidden doors and travel a concealed town you're walking on. Janitor told me something that might be common knowledge, but was nonetheless news to me. Walt Disney had several apartments built into his parks. There's one above Cinderella's castle. There's one in the Pirates of the Caribbean ride. They're all over the place. More than that, there are nightclubs, a movie theater, a bowling alley, and much more. All behind doors built right in the whimsical facades you pass by without a second look. Club 22 is one such hidden area. If you have the cash to join the exclusive club, you don't, then you'll have access to it and much more. Club 22 is a place where anything goes. Disney company calls these places dark zones. Spots where the squeaky clean visage of Mickey Mouse gives way to drinking, drugs, and yes,
I
sex.
feel like I've heard of.
I've heard of
22.
yes. This is real. Club 22 is apparently a real thing, but
It's a real conspiracy theory. Brum, brum.
Conversely, the rest of the park is the bright zone, with a few gray zone utilidors between.
as far as Janitor has said, it wasn't always that way. It was more of a slow decline and the gradual relaxation of social norms within the elite group. The reason he knows all this, you may have guessed it. He's cleaned it.
He's the spooge sponger.
After a lengthy background check and a non-disclosure form, the janitor moved up from the park's attendant to one of the dark zone cleaning crew. Now, before you get into some satanic human sacrifice vision in your heads, janitor saw nothing of the sort. Lots of empty alcohol bottoms, yes. Used condoms scattered around like deflated New Year's balloons, oh yeah. He's cleaned up his share of blood, piss, and vomit, but it was all down to the unrestricted behavior of patrons as opposed to any sort of cult behavior. At least that's how he sees it in his retrospect. All that trash, that profane shit, went into a furnace and mingled with the smoke of a quaint cottage chimney. If you've been to Disney World, you've breathed in ultra-condensed sin.
Fucking slobbies, man. So good.
Backing up this information was Hammer. Hammer mailed me the old-fashioned way, though I don't know how he got my home address. Probably working for Disney. He sent me photocopies of work papers proving his employment, with the instruction to burn them when I was convinced, which I did gladly. Hammer worked around the Disney World Park doing demolition and construction. At one point, he approached a superior regarding some strange construction plans. There was a wide rectangular area marked off on the blueprints, about the size of a supermarket. The area was left unnamed and only bore the words, "Do not dig." Not only was his superior in the dark, but he was super fucking purposefully in the dark. He didn't want to talk about it, didn't want to know about it, and ended the conversation with, "This space intentionally left blank." Hammer didn't get it. The area seemed a waste of space, and it was directly conflicting with the work his team had been given. He started poking around the area on his off time, finding over only a derelict steel door and a great span of concrete just beyond. It was a supermarket's worth of blank gray floor. Soon after, Hammer started picking gasgots out of the crowds. Unlike all other reports, the people, the things, would stand in full view of the guy. They'd cluster together in the distance, or they'd just be pressed against a wall when he turned a corner. He said they moved weird, like they were weak or injured, like a deer that's been run down by a hunter that can't flee anymore. The gas masks, the Disney character faces with filters jammed in, he noted that they seemed wet on the inside, like condensation on a car window. Tiny beads of water glimmered behind the glass, making it impossible for any of them to actually see. Probing further, Hammer started asking questions of anyone and everyone who had been working in the park for a decade or more. He hit dead ends throughout until he was directed to Ida, an elderly woman who worked in a restaurant on Main Street. She'd been there since way back, and though nobody had the balls to ask directly, everyone knew she had plenty of terrible stories to tell.
Hammer asked about the empty space, then about the gas mask customers, and at first he thought he would receive the same non-answers he'd gotten so far. She was quiet, eerily quiet. "Room 0, she croaked, a single shaking hand placed to her cheek, as if she were a little girl fearing her father's punishment. She didn't meet the man's gaze for the entire conversation. Room 0, as it turned out, was yet another hidden room just like the apartments in Club 22. However, its sheer size and its spot deep beneath the park set it apart from any of the fun dark zones. It was a bomb shelter. Room 0 was built to withstand a massive attack, be it conducted by foreign or domestic enemies. Room 0 was to be stocked with enough rations to feed the entire park's average number of patrons at any given moment, and has a smaller yet lavish panic room of sorts for Disney higher-ups. During World War II, official Disney gas masks were actually produced for children to wear in the event of an attack. The idea that it would be less scary for kids if Mickey's face was emblazoned on a wartime safety device. Okay. Yes, I know the obvious problems with that. During the Cold War scare of the 60s, when Disney World was constructed, Room 0 was stocked with similar masks as well. Whether they cared about the fears of children or just callous branding, things found their way down there. What's more, some genius decided that kids would then be frightened by the gas masks their parents wore, and so all masks, adult and children, were made to comply with this insane standard.
This is not insane. That makes perfect sense.
It makes sense. It does make sense. Ida described it as treating a wound with lemon juice. Fair enough. None of this explained what Hammer had been seeing, though. Not only, Jesus, the seemingly supernatural appearances, but the emptied-out room as well. I've been there, he explained. There's nothing but a cement floor and four walls. No. Ida shook her head and covered her mouth, stifling a sob. You've been on top of it.
Okay, hang on. Does none of this sound creepy to anyone else?
It's pretty creepy.
It's pretty creepy.
Well, it's a bomb shelter.
Right.
Right, but it's underground. It's like...
Where else would you put it?
Well,
On
there's
the
no
Ferris
entrance.
wheel?
Well, no, it's just a flat land. It's like he's...
There's no
So
entrance.
Probably in the underground tunnels.
Hammer, basically the way he's describing it, Hammer's found this basic, like a parking lot.
Yeah.
This giant supermarket-sized parking lot that he can't build on top of.
Right.
And nobody wants to tell him why. And there's a bomb shelter that has no entrance to it. It's not like it's there.
Okay, well, he doesn't know where the entrance is, but there's obviously an entrance to this bomb shelter.
What I find creepy is that, okay, so if they do have these gas masks or whatever, why the fuck are there creepy injured people walking around the park? That's scary.
That is the only disturbing thing about
really
this story.
creepy.
Because right now everyone's like, ooh, there's a bomb shelter, a deep dark secret. It's like, good. There should have been a bomb shelter in World War II. They'd be remiss not to have a bomb shelter as an amusement park with thousands of people. Have a place to stick them. If the Jerrys came in, it's not the Jerrys. They were on our side. I'm sorry, fellow Jerrys who listen to this podcast.
Jesus Christ.
Time travelers from 1945.
Crowd.
Yeah, exactly. If the Krauts came in on the Blitzkrieg, that was when shit went down. This makes perfect sense to me. And the whole, the gas mask, they painted it with Goofy's face. What monsters? Callous branding. Made no sense. All right.
It's not
if
that
the bombs are coming down on the kids, let them be Goofy.
I don't think that it's callous either. I agree with you, but it's fucking creepy that there's a gas mask painted with Goofy's face on it.
In fact,
and there's adults wearing it, and they're disappearing and reappearing.
If you scroll back
up
to the top of the page has a picture of a kid wearing one of these.
Okay,
gas masks.
I'll say from a modern day aesthetic, it is creepy, but given backstory, it makes it less creepy because it makes complete sense to me why it exists.
Right. Well, let's keep reading.
All right, I'm sure it'll get weird.
Someone or something sounded the alarm one day, when the park was at full capacity. The warning was clear. It was supposedly an air attack. Security ushered everyone down into the tremendous shelter. There they were ordered to put on their masks and hunker down for the duration of the assault. Everything was quiet for about 30 minutes, save for the crying children and the frightened whispers. No one wanted to die, so they were thankful in a way for this strange measure of safety. Then the first scream rang out. "Hey," a man shouted, "quit pinching." Waves of shrieks and yelps rippled through the crowd, from one wall to the other, back and forth. "Who's running around? Settle down," someone hollered. "Who's laughing? This isn't funny." "Ow! Who stepped on my foot?" Despite security guards urging to calm down and keep their cool, the crowd became more and more agitated until finally, after nearly an hour of madness, the lights flickered, then died. What followed could only be described as utter chaos in the dark. Only the wails of the young and anguished cries of adults could be heard in a massive, swelling din that bloodied the ears of all within that black echo chamber. A group of staff members and a select few patrons made it out the door, ready to face the war above rather than the insanity below. What they found, of course, was a desolate yet untouched theme park. The music continued to play, echoing through silent storybook towns. Upon returning to room 0, the few who stood at the top of the steel staircase that led down into the pitch blackness heard no sign of the previous fray. There was only silence. Ida herself descended the staircase, despite the beggings of those she left above. She reached the reinforced doors herself, now awash in darkness, and hearing only the buzzing in her ears. A single voice came out of the darkness. The echo made it impossible to tell whether the mocking, raspy voice was at the back of the bomb shelter, or if it was right in front of her face. "Shut the door, dear. You're letting out the cold." Gripped by terror, she did just that. Within days, the entire thing, shelter, staircase, all of it, was covered with feet upon feet of cement. Air systems and generators above it. Ceilings were removed, creating a large empty space. "They're all still down there," Ida told Hammer. "Down there with whoever that was. You might notice I've used Ida's name. Unfortunately, she passed away soon after telling her story. Accidental fall, supposedly, after getting out of the bed to turn on a light." Such a company devotee, the paper reported, that her entire bedroom was covered with Mickey silhouettes.
Dun, dun, dun!
And that is Room 0, the sequel to Abandoned by Disney.
It's over?
Yeah, that's it.
Oh,
Yeah.
I thought something was gonna happen.
No.
Gee willikers.
So the story is basically him post Abandoned by Disney and him telling some creepy stories about the Disney people, and it will continue with the next story, with the next two stories that are happening.
Right.
I think that the idea, we kind of blazed over it as Dylan was reading it. I should have actually stopped him so we could talk about it. But the idea of an entire theme park of patrons being in one bunker room,
Being buried, yeah.
but then the lights turning off,
Yeah.
and you have like kids there and it's screaming. And...
See, now I immediately thought of just not a supernatural killer because you don't need one.
Right.
If you I immediately thought, you needed 2 supermarkets. It sounds like because when you get a bunch of people crushed together and they panic, they fucking kill each other, dude.
Yeah, that's what it is.
And not even stabbing, they just crush each other to death. It was there was a soccer game in the 80s in where was it? Hillsborough. It was the Hillsborough disaster or something. You Google it. Have you ever heard of this?
No.
There's a Liverpool game, and I don't know if they allowed too many people or they had to close down a section of the stands. I'm fuzzy on the details, but they had to move a bunch of people into a pen of sorts. There was a standing room only place for fans to watch the game, and they packed so many people in that they couldn't move, and people started suffocating to death because they were being literally crushed to death. It was a disaster. Several people died at a soccer game because they packed too many people into the stands. That's what I instantly thought of.
So we're being led to believe in this story in Room Zero that these people wearing the gascots, wearing the gas masks, are the
souls
ghosts or the souls of the people that were buried.
There's many different interpretations. I mean, there is.
I mean, that's what I gather from that. Yeah.
That's what I like.
Give me another one.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's there's that.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what. Again, that's assuming that you trust this.
Right. Well, I just wanted to verify that is what.
Obviously, the tinfoil is always on the shelf.
Right.
We got that.
Right.
Right.
That's what we're supposed to get from this. That there's malevolent spirits still haunting that Disney park specifically, which. Oh God! Excuse me.
Yeah, you're really.
I'm really disgusting. I'm a fucking monster.
You're fine.
Which very cool concept, but I was expecting more about Mowgli's palace. Why the people... And I guess maybe you can use the excuse that maybe that was the bomb shelter and that's something went horrifically wrong down there with the mascot.
The thing is that
but
one
of
the reasons...
something, a more explanation for what
with a lot of creepypasta sequels, they, I'm trying to think, I can't even really think of any, but... Well, I can think of maybe No End House, but I'm not going to go into that one.
Well,
but one of the reasons I think the sequel works is because it doesn't try to be Abandoned by Disney 2. It tries to be its own. It's I think Slime Beast had a plan for more stories following. Right. He wanted to leave more room open for potential sequels.
It's called Room Zero, not Abandoned by Disney.
When he wrote Abandoned by Disney, it was the first one, so he didn't know how popular it would be. So there's an ending. There's that story could stand on its own.
No, and that's fine. And I'm not disappointed by this story. I really like this story. Again, we have this unreliable narrator where it's is this genuinely really what's going on, or is he being crazy?
Well,
after
it's
what
not
he
just
had with
him
the
being
first
crazy.
one?
This is, again, you can decide on, because he's basically showing a bunch of examples of other people.
But we don't know how legitimate those examples
are.
Look,
I mean,
that's the thing.
We can doubt him the whole time, and we kind of went into it a lot early on.
Right.
You know what I mean? I feel like if we're to take this at face value, right, you've got... It reminds me of a problem I had with Candle Cove, where because it's all in retrospect, it doesn't feel as immediately gripping.
But
and I mean, a lot of people are like, well, shut up, we thought it was scary, and I get that. Maybe this is just a personal problem on my end.
You're just a shitty human being.
This is just a subjective thing for me, where I feel a retrospective, this feels to me like we're all sitting around a bonfire, and Slime Beast has told us a campfire story.
Yes and no, because even if he is paranoid, the author, and we want to take that at face value, the author still believes that he's being followed. So he still believes that there's a genuine threat.
Yes, but that was never... That was a cool setup, and I liked it more than where the story went, because the story starts off for the first third of it being about his paranoia and his fear of the corporation hunting him, and we go into Ida's ghost story, and that's where we climax and leave.
It does.
Well, it dips back in a little with the Mickey silhouettes.
It does. It does. Now that you're saying that, it does seem like there's two very different narratives.
It's weirdly disconnected.
From
in terms of where we're heading.
Right, and that's fine.
And if the third loops back on this conspiracy and redoubles its efforts, then this will be nothing more than almost kind of a strange aside, I think, in terms of an overarching narrative. And I think that's kind of weird, frankly. Right. I'm not thrilled.
If you remember, though, with Abandoned by Disney, he was already like kind of doing a lot of research about Disney way before Mowgli's Palace. Yeah. So he already was kind of maybe a little bit addicted to the idea of potentially...
he was doing the research because of Mowgli's Palace.
I mean, though. just from like a behind the curtains aspect to this, like, this is a fun story to read, because it's cool to see like a seedy underbelly to a shining example of goodness, and that's fun. And we talked about it a little with Abandoned by Disney, probably.
And unfortunately, this, as much as I like this this line of stories, it has caused a lot of let's just say other creepypasta stories that also try to talk about Disney.
Oh my god!
Especially with the
the corridors.
Nobody can be as good as Slime Beast. Well, we read the other Disney one. We read Grand Night in the Haunted Mansion.
I haven't seen another Disney story as good as this, but like I think Abandoned by Disney was sort of the granddaddy as far as actually the idea of writing a creepypasta about a corporation and like the city underbelly of a corporation. I think this was the first one to kind of do it, right. And they did it well, obviously.
You're talking in terms of creepypasta,
just in creepypasta,
okay.
Yes,
and not necessarily like. It's cool to see Slime Beast as an author, not necessarily himself in the character, but like tell a scary story and then have the follow up be, all right, well now as the narrator, rather than tell a story, I'm going to put myself as the author and the narrator and like go into the real and continue posting and being scared of like the
this isn't like because this is what most writers would do. If they do the sequel and they go, I had to go back.
Right.
Like that, and that is the most unrealistic thing to do.
Or
what do you mean?
Explain.
Well, he goes back to
what happened.
As far as a sequel goes. Right. Okay, I'm with you there.
Or sequel or prequel where he
because the real sequel to a traumatic event like Abandoned by Disney is to hole yourself up, be an outcast, and be a hermit, and just
be paranoid.
Be paranoid. Right. Dylan, what did you think of the story? You've been kind of silent.
It doesn't help that I have family members that work at Disney, so hearing this, I go. Okay, it sounds...
Wait, hold on.
Hold on. Dylan.
Hold on.
Okay, I'm going to put this out there now. Dylan, hold on.
Dylan, the Disney defender. We have a corporate chill amongst us.
Dylan, do you have family members that are higher up corporate Disney guys?
They work in the underneath.
Right. Those are low... Okay. Those are like the people like Janitor and Hammer.
What does this have to do with what I'm trying to say?
Hang on, what are you trying to say?
Hold on.
I'm just trying to say, like, all this, like, usually rumors spread throughout employees. Am I not correct in saying that?
Wait, so are you offended by this story?
I'm not offended by it.
He's just saying,
I'm just saying, like, I never heard, like, usually you would hear things such as, like, a bomb shelter being thrown in conversation from said Disney employees.
Okay.
So maybe they don't know a lot about it. Like, I mean, the only reason why Hammer discovered it is because...
But this is a story, Dylan.
Hang on.
You not even let me finish.
That's right. Okay. That's right. Everyone's cutting off
I'm trying to give you a shot rather than these two.
Let Dylan take a shot. Go on, Dylan. We're sorry.
So, like, hearing this, I mean, it's weird. Like, it's weird hearing this compared to stories, from family talking about how Disney is. I mean, but I'm gonna go with what Will said, like the goofy gas masks and stuff. I mean, it's there to reassure that everyone is calm, collected, and stuff. Is it somewhat creepy to have that laying there in a bomb shelter? Yes, but if it's there to make sure everything's reassuring, I mean, what's so scary about it?
Well, because it's kind of like, it's almost a little bit like the heads that he finds in Mowgli's palace. Right. The creepy, because it's not that they're fundamentally scary. It's the idea of this, because in the first story, it's this abandoned place with all these weird, old, decrepit costumes.
The scary part is the people wearing them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would imagine a normal person in a dark, damp room, as he describes it, with a bunch of old Disney costumes, would be at least a little unsettling as a setting. If you're standing there, it's it's a very unnerving place, and I think that it reminds me about this story with the gas mask. Dylan, I did not know you had family members that worked, so I want to ask you a question.
Can I ask you?
I was going to ask you a question about it. What have they heard?
Right. I was literally about to ask the same
surely
question.
they have told you something
What is
about
the
walking
weirdest
around
thing?
the utility corridors.
Right.
The utility corridors.
Only weird things that they have is that when certain certain places they walk through, like that was the Magical Kingdom, like it's ghost stories and shit like that. Like stuff opens up underneath during the utility corridors, where stuff just starts opening up randomly.
Like doors?
Doors.
That's scary.
That's creepier than the gas Scots,
Because
honestly.
you're in it's not like you're in the outside. This is
Right.
You've
You're in
nowhere
a
to
fucking
go.
single hallway tunnel.
That reminds me of Grand Night. When they're
A little
walking
bit,
around they're walking around the utility corridors and doors are closing.
I
and
forget how long she's worked at it. I think it's been around.
Is this a cousin or is this you don't have to say?
It's a great aunt.
Great
So
aunt.
20 to 15 years.
She's like,
Clearly she has something.
Yeah, she's got it.
Well, he's saying there's like hauntedness going on.
Yeah.
Right. So that's like the weirdest thing you've ever heard
That's
about
the
this.
weirdest
So I guess not to
Interesting.
correct me if I'm wrong. So what you're saying, Dylan, is that because you have people who've worked, who've worked so long at Disney, that this isn't resonating with you
this
because you've
doesn't-
never
it doesn't
heard
really-
anything like
Right.
it.
Yeah, it does. It just
So it takes you out of the immersion
doesn't-
aspect.
Yeah,
You
it
can't
pretty
get
much
immersed.
does- It
That's
pretty much
fine.
does because
That's totally fair.
hearing stories of Disney and then hearing a story made up of Disney's of like pasta. It's like I know where Slam basically trying to go with it. I get it. I mean, for someone who doesn't really know about the underground of Disney, it's pretty scary. But as someone who knows about the underground, it doesn't resonate.
That makes sense.
It does
And
not
that's all
resonate
Dylan
well.
wanted to say. But you both were like, fucking, he's an idiot.
I didn't
All
say
right,
that.
you
No.
interrupted
I'm
him
sorry,
too,
what?
Mr. Trying to be a
Fair
I didn't
enough.
call you
But
that.
I was trying
Although
to
let me
defend him.
let me counter you though and say that this bomb shelter that was built in the 1940s, and I think when Ida was describing the stories was used in the 1960s because some alarm went off. Even your great aunt, who's been working there for 20 to 25 years, wouldn't be around in 1960 as far as working there.
Working there now.
Right.
Yeah, but
so what I'm trying to say is that in the age before the internet, and the age before information could be moved around quickly, Disney could bury this.
Are we not?
They absolutely
Oh, no,
could.
yeah,
John, are we
In
not?
fact, the only reason why this was uncovered is because some construction worker was told he couldn't build on a certain spot. He went out of his way to find somebody, and he finds this old lady who happened to work there in the 1960s, and then she told him.
So let me ask you something. I don't know how you would do this, but try to take the Disney aspect out of it then. Like, if say this is just some random fucking amusement park that just has like a shady history and there's these creepy people with gas masks walking around, do you still feel unsettled by that?
If it's something like I don't know, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And
But
I think
but
that's right.
But like like we were saying before, because I know of Disney, it doesn't resonate.
So
But
there's
if I
a
did know,
disconnect, right?
so if I
Would
didn't
you-
know if it was Disney, if I didn't know it was Disney to begin with, then
But that's why I asked, because it's right. Okay, so just based on personal experience.
No, that's good insight.
Right.
You had a lot of insight you could have shared. Yeah, we don't have to.
You don't want to say this during the fucking Brandon Bar Disney fun.
I didn't know, honestly. I thought that, I honestly thought you would. Did you mention this at all during Abandoned by Disney that you had people who worked? Because that was Mowgli's Palace, and, and that was like.
Right, but this is this is like Disney World.
This is
they're
Disney
talking
World.
about.
This is
Disney
straight
World.
up Disney.
It's different.
I would not be shocked if Disney had an underground bunker that they didn't want anyone to see it anymore.
Not at all.
Yeah.
No.
there's still.
I wouldn't be shocked about any fucking corporate.
Are there not still rumors about Walt Disney's head being?
Oh my God, there's
Well, that's
tons of
yeah.
rumors.
Well, that's a no.
Tons of rumors. But I mean, I guess looking aside from like the story itself, which is good. It's good. It's fun to read. A lot of fun stuff. I'm still kind of bothered by the structure of this. I'm thinking about it, and just when you think of a traditional horror story, right? You've got creepy shit in the beginning that no one can explain. Our protagonist looks further, digs deeper, right? They find the backstory, and if you think about it in terms of Abandoned by Disney, this worked too. They find the backstory, and it culminates in creepy shit going down, right? This story stops at the backstory.
Right.
We never culminate. We never climax.
The creepiness is that we get this mystery of these gas mask people who disappear and reappear, and these kids that like they're maybe being choked or strangled in the tunnel when they go down the slide or whatever, and then we find out by the end that this is it. It's like the ghosts of these fucking people.
We don't get that experience. I feel like there's no...
Fair.
Why doesn't our protagonist have some sort of interaction meaningfully with any of this?
I would have
doesn't want to. He's not going to... Like, what do you want him to do?
No,
because
that's unrealistic for him to try and go to Disney and just go to...
For a story perspective, you can argue that, but I'm saying from a structural perspective, it is imperative to have some sort of climax.
The thing that kind of broke the narrative for me is something that happens a lot in these stories when Ida goes down there.
Yeah.
And she opens the door, and then she hears someone go in a raspy voice, close the door. And
it's shut the door, dear, you're letting out the cold.
I would have accepted her opening the door, and, there was a body or blood was coming from underneath the door, and they were just like, no, just close. But the fact that there's, some weird, old, creepy, possibly supernatural element, that's what kind of ruins it. Because you get the same thing at the end of the Russian sleep experiment. Not as obnoxious and in your face.
You know what, honestly?
But it's the same thing. So then it's I would have gladly accepted they see something horrific like a body or something, or even a fucking dead kid or whatever, and they just bury it, keep it all hush hush because this was an accident. The alarm went off on accident. And then their ghosts are wandering around. But the fact that she goes down there and there's a fucking voice and she's like, close that door. It's alright.
Going back to that, it kind of sounds like, okay, he tells him to close the door. Right. So now you have these people in there.
Right.
This is just the theory.
Okay.
Sure. The theory about this. So what if those people, there was actual food supply down there to keep these people living?
Uh-huh.
So that now whoever's in charge lets a couple of them out with the gas masks to cause havoc.
Maybe.
In the
totally possible.
Yeah.
Or their guardians, they're fucked up guardians of
There's a colony of fucked up goofy
people.
Gas mask people living in the
that,
park.
They'll limp around because they got injured in the
struggle.
struggle.
Through the park, just behind the scenes, when you can't see them, say behind underneath the slide.
I would even accept that.
Take the panels off. Yeah. Take the kid and put him back up. Put the thing back on.
Yeah, I would even accept that. But the fact that you get this weird old person shut the door, alright.
I think it was him trying to rhyme with the thing that happens at the end of Abandoned by Disney.
But you don't have to.
I know, yeah.
Because we just talked about how it's different, and it's not a direct sequel.
Well, it is a direct. Well, this is the sequel.
Yeah, but it's not. It doesn't. It's not Abandoned by Disney 2.
Right.
It's Room Zero. Right.
Mm-hmm.
It's the same narrator, same theme. Very different story. Very different idea.
Okay. Final thoughts. I still like the story. I think that this is... I hear what William's saying, and I do agree with him on some level. I just don't know how else you can make a sequel to a story like this. It's not like this guy is going to be out hunting for... He's not gonna go back to Mowgli's Palace. He's not gonna go anywhere. He's not gonna go to Disney World. He's not gonna go to Disneyland.
Well, you have to fundamentally rewrite his arc.
Of course, yes, and that's what he's doing. He's changing as a character.
The thing is, sorry to interrupt, but would you really have to read Abandoned by Disney to get this story?
It even says on the top that you should probably read Abandoned by Disney. It's this is the sequel. I guess yes, because
what relation though did we all link Abandoned by Disney?
The same character.
It's the same character.
No, I think Dylan's right. I think
if you
you
can write
could read this.
Room Zero can stand on its own.
All you do is write a different character, and this is a totally different story.
I think if it stands on its own, it's even weaker.
Right.
Because you don't have that baggage from Abandoned by Disney.
Right.
That
It's
effective
actually
horror.
a little bit creepier if you're just reading this as a single story. It's a completely different narrator. I'll agree with Dylan on that.
Well, in a way, he is kind of because he's changed. He's no longer this... Because in the beginning of Abandoned by Disney, he's this peppy, I'm gonna go find it. He's a truth hunter, and he still kind of is in this, but he's much more
much
scared. He's doing it because he still is obsessed with the idea of finding out,
right?
These things with Disney. But he's much more aware and like not as happy about it anymore. Like he's not as excited to go. He was happy to go to Mowgli's. Like he wanted to go to Mowgli's palace and explore.
And it fucking ruined him.
And it ruined him.
Mm-hmm.
So now he never. Yeah. And as far as him digging up more stuff on them, makes perfect sense. And this is the way he would do it. He wouldn't.
Right.
These aren't his stories anymore. These are other people's stories.
As sequels go in terms of storytelling and logistically, it's fine. It doesn't jump shark or anything like that, because I know, we decades ago when we read No End House and we talked about how there's sequels, I wound up reading the second and third one, and that, I don't know if we're ever going to cover them.
There's apparently a rumor about the No End House sequels, how they weren't written by the same author. There's a rumor.
It definitely doesn't seem like it, because it completely jumps the shark by the third one, like to the point of it being like laughable.
There's someone I want to talk to about that.
Yeah.
I was told that it's possible that there's a.
It definitely feels like it.
There's a guy on the internet named Mr. Creepypasta who is he got lucky with that name.
Yeah, no kidding.
But he's a creepypasta narrator. Oh yeah! Now that this is the perfect time to mention this. This is a Slime story. Vincent Vinacava's trademark was declined, so he doesn't have trademark on the word creepypasta anymore.
Sick.
Which he shouldn't have, because it's a genre.
Victory.
You don't. It's like owning comedy.
Yeah.
Or the word
much.
horror.
Yeah.
You can't.
Or the Happy Birthday song. Oh wait.
Who owns that?
It's not. It's public domain now, I think.
Is it now?
Who
I
owned
think
it?
so.
Someone used to make bank off that shit.
Mr. Birthday? I don't fucking know.
I don't remember.
Mr. Birthday? Happy birthday?
I don't know enough to reference it.
But again, in terms of how sequels go, or even just fucking creepypasta stories and single creepypasta stories in general, this story's fine. I think it works as a sequel or a soft sequel, whatever you want to call it. It's definitely not as good as Abandoned by Disney.
I don't think it could be as good. I don't know how you make it. It's very rare for a sequel to be as good as the original anyway. I don't understand.
Right,
but again, it's not, because again, you would have to. The only way you can make this better than Abandoned by Disney is if you make a better Abandoned by. Like if he could have gone the route of using a different narrator, like somebody else explores movies and explores more of the past.
And that probably would have made a better sequel. I'm gonna say right now, because John, I know you keep pushing that like this has to be what it is. You know what I mean? You're like, this is the narrator, this is his arc, we have to follow him, and there's no way this can be changed. I say one of the great things about writing is not only do you write the story, you get to decide what the story's about. Right. And this author decided to follow this narrator, and I'll agree with you. This is a natural arc to take. This is what a person would do. He would be broken. He would not want to go anywhere. Maybe he shouldn't be the protagonist of the sequel then, because this does not make for a good story, following a person being scared. If he's not acted on...
So I don't like the story.
I feel like the whole time I've kind of complained about it, to be honest. I think it's well written. I don't like the story.
Okay.
I will say that unless this character is acted on by an outside force or a third party, which he really isn't in any tangible or concrete way, he himself cannot and does not carry this story. I think the story climaxes in an old lady's ghost tale, and that's not effective given the first third of the story setup of him being trailed by a corporation or not, which we never got any closure on, which maybe we will in a sequel. That doesn't excuse this story. This can't serve as just a bridge. It's not a good sequel in that regard. And I feel like he's not a compelling character anymore since he's been broken, and nothing is done to alleviate that problem.
Okay, that's your take on it. I'm going to strongly disagree.
Thick.
But
I will agree with certain aspects of what you said, but the suggestion of making a true sequel to Abandoned by Disney where it's somebody else and we get a little bit more might have been more entertaining and might have actually helped the narrative of this, or if this story was eventually told, might have helped the narrative a little bit more.
Or even have the corporation manifest in a meaningful way.
Right.
And do something concrete.
But it might in the sequel. We don't know.
Okay, but that doesn't excuse this story, is what I'm saying.
Fair enough.
All right. Dylan, final thoughts on the story.
I mean, it was a good story. I mean, if it wasn't for my disconnect with the whole Disney thing, I mean, I would have been creeped out by it. Other than that, I mean, it's okay.
Okay. So the next story that we will read when we eventually get back to the series is something called A Few Suggestions, which is a very unique and a little bit different than what these two stories have been so far. But we'll get there when we get there. So, yeah, that's how I'm going to end it. So this has been Scare Your Friends. Thank you for listening. Join us next time. And always remember to scare your friends.